fiscal year 2013-2014 operational budget hearings for the departments. The first department we have before us today is the trustee's office. We have with us Mr. Charlie Carwell, our trustee, and Ms. Pat Greer, the deputy trustee. I want to lay down a couple of operational housekeeping things and instructions before we begin. I will give the department heads or the presenters opportunity to present their budget proposal, and I will give Budget and Finance Committee members the first opportunity to ask any questions, and then I will open the floor up to the General Counsel once Budget and Finance committee members have had the opportunity. Before we begin with this department's budget hearing, do have Councilman Stein that has a brief
Thank you,
comment.
Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to ask the Finance Director a general question before we started because it applies across the board. Some of our favorite subjects over time are internal service fees, and it looked like this year there were lots of increases, and so thank you, Mr. Chair. I just thought that maybe the Finance Director might address that issue up front because I suspect it may be a question almost every time we have an individual department. So, Mr. Riebling, why does it look like a lot have gone up, and has your policy changed any since in the last year or two?
Councilman, thank you. I'm pleased to know that we're starting the budget hearings off on the right foot with giving me the opportunity to speak to all of you, as I'm sure I'll have more opportunities over the next several weeks. I can get as specific. We can get more information depending on your level of your questions. But generally speaking, the internal service fees, which are really designed in 4 or 5 areas, the reason why some of the costs are going up this year, a lot of it's attributable to IT cost. Our overall IT costs are up about $750,000 this year, and most of that is it can be traced back to contractual obligations, software cost increases, just the cost of updated software. So that would be one reason why you would see in a lot of areas and departments higher cost basically attributable to IT. A second area where you'll see some additional costs will be on building cost. We did and will be bringing online some additional buildings this year, which have obviously operational costs into them. The largest of which I would say would be the old Peterbilt, the Maya Drive facility. Now has to be built into our cost model because that's online and will be serviceable at point this year. And then finally, I would say that another area where you'll see some increases is in fleet. Just overall fleet costs are going up in a lot of areas, gas prices, things of that nature. So those are probably 3 big reasons why you're seeing some. I would point out just if you look, if you look at in the budget book on C1, for example.
C4 has that by department from year to year.
C4 has it by year to year from department. But I would point out, for example, like on eBid, we're not charging any department any money for eBid this year. They've accumulated a substantial fund balance, and so we didn't see any need to build that fund balance. So there's just no cost to any departments for eBid this year. So it's a calculation that changes each year, but generally speaking, those are some of the major reasons why you're seeing some numbers. And obviously I can get into a lot more, I don't know if I can get into a lot more detail, but someone on my staff, we can get you more detail. I almost told a misstatement there. Phil Claiborne, stop laughing back there. But we can get you more detail. There's some specifics that you want to have, but generally those are the answers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman Stein. Councilman Tiger.
Rich, just to follow up, if more buildings are coming online, it would seem to me that the economies of scale would start kicking in, and if it's the Peterbilt example, then that cost would be absorbed by the police department and not the trustee's office.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to go look on that page and look at the cost per se, but generally speaking, just if building costs are going up generally, it could require some additional staff, utility costs are going up, things of that nature, so it's spread out over there's a per square foot formula that they use for all the buildings.
Is that, as we add buildings, does that square foot cost go up or go down?
I don't know the answer to that.
If we could get an answer to that, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Tiger. I'll now turn the floor over to Mr. Caldwell. Before I do want to ask council members to keep any questions, particularly to their budget, and not ask general questions about the department, if you can please help it. We are going to try to stay on schedule for each department's hearing, and I will interrupt you if I see that your questions do not have any pertinence to the budget. So thank you. Mr. Caldwell?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the Budget and Finance Committee. What I would like to do first is brag about a couple of programs that we have in our office that was supported by the mayor as well as the Metro Council for 2012-13, and that was increasing the amount for the tax relief program. This past year, we were given $3,100,000 to administer the program. We have 7,162 taxpayers that are on the tax relief program. We have 7,323 taxpayers that are on the tax freeze program. If your income level under the tax relief does not exceed $26,830, then if you are in the urban services, you get a credit of $872 toward your tax statement. If you're in the GSD, you get $726 credit. These have been great programs for this community, especially with the tax increase for 2012. And I'm sure that many council members can speak that they have received calls from their constituents when they did get that credit. And we tried to notify each council member of any person in their district that might receive that credit. So it's been a great program for this community. We have been able this past year to allow taxpayers to pay at First Tennessee Bank. The bank collected over $8 million for 2012-13, about 2,500 transactions. So we feel like that each year this will pick up and be a convenience for the taxpayer. A few years ago, Council Lady Megan Berry asked if we could send out tax statements by email. We are now doing that, and the list that we have now is right at 7,000. And each year we ask the taxpayer if they want their tax statement in the future to be sent to them by email. And if that's the case, that's what we do. As far as the budget that was given to me by the mayor, I can live with that. It's a fair budget, and we can make it work for the trustee's office. I'll be glad to accept any questions that anyone might have at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Caldwell. Councilman Tiger.
Thank you for being here, Charlie. Have you run the numbers as to how much it saves your office emailing a tax statement as opposed to snail mail? And it has to go with the internal service fees. The more transactions you do, that way, obviously, we increase your internal service. Is it that great a savings?
Well, we feel like that it is a savings. We have not run the numbers, but it has to be a savings because of postage and other costs involved with sending the mail out as mail goes out today.
I would just be curious, and I'll ask Mr. Durbin this, as you increase your transactions, how bad that hurts you on internal service fees, but obviously I agree with you that it would have to be a savings. In your marketing campaign to encourage folks to sign up for email, can you describe a little bit about how you're pursuing that, and is there plans to be more aggressive to get more folks to even sign up?
Well, what we did this past year is we put on the tax statement that if in the future they wanted their tax statement by email, then we had a little block for them to check off and also to sign. We wanted to make sure that they were in agreement that they wanted to receive their tax statement by email, and they also had to furnish us the email address.
Would it be possible to have a statement on there to save your taxpayer money? Please sign here if you want, email, something to that effect?
Be glad to do that, yes, sir.
Okay, final question. First Tennessee, and I noticed that you're actively or somehow looking for other banks to participate in the collection program. What advantages are there to the banks to do this?
Well, actually, I'm sure that gets people into their bank. The exposure for the bank, I think, is important to the bank. And this was a pilot program because we didn't know how this was going to work, and we only accept full payments. We do not accept delinquent taxes. So there's a lot of hurdles that we will have to go over as time goes to make sure that the bank has the right information. We do not accept delinquencies, as I said earlier, and it's just a magnitude of things. The statement they bring in has to have the coding on it. So there are a lot of different areas of that tax statement that we have to make sure that is accurate to accept those payments outside of our office or outside of the lockbox.
Do we charge First Tennessee for the right to attract these extra customers?
Actually, we pay First Tennessee $1 for each transaction.
Each transaction?
Yes.
How was this advertised this first year for the pilot program?
We had a flyer in each tax statement telling them that they could go to the nearest First Tennessee bank, and we listed those banks for the taxpayer as to where they were located.
Did First Tennessee have any advertising using Metro's logo or anything in their lobbies that, cite for property tax payments?
The only advertisement that we had was we had the flyer and we had First Tennessee with Metro's logo on it.
Okay, thank you.
That's all the advertisement that was done, as far as I'm aware of, by the trustee's office.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Tiger. Council Lady Moore.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick question, Mr. Caldwell. I was looking at your accomplishments, and I know you have the tax relief program and the tax freeze program for seniors. Are there any other considerations for any kind of programs for seniors when it comes to just these two? Are there others? Because I've always asked this question. So
those are the only two programs that we have at this time. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Are there any other consideration from the state to do something? I just see a senior lose their home, and I'm just wondering what else could be done or what have you.
I'm not aware of any other program.
Okay.
Yes,
All right.
ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council Lady Moore. Council Lady Dow.
Thank you. Mr. Caldwell, I wanted to ask a question about the ITNS services. I know that we've started sending out the statements, and they have been wonderfully received, but I get a lot of questions, and I've spoken with Keith Durbin about it. Do you contract outside with the software package for your software for the tax collection?
We do. We use a outside firm that actually does our printing and our mailing.
Okay, as far as like when they go on, the question I had from someone that I've talked with him about is potentially modifying that software. One of the challenges that some of the constituents have is that we went to where constituents could pay their taxes, like if they want to pay weekly, monthly, or however they want to pay them, up until the taxes are due. On the statement, when they send it out, if they've made payments on their taxes over a period of time, like say they paid weekly or monthly, the statement, unfortunately, it cuts off, so it doesn't show the full history of all the payments that a constituent has made toward the taxes. It only shows like a little snippet, maybe like the last 5 or 6 payments. So the total on your tax statement bill does not match up with the summary. So it can be a little bit confusing, and I was just wondering what is the opportunity to go in there and, I haven't looked at the numbers, but I wanted to talk about, with Keith Durbin, maybe having a conversation about what it would be to modify that software to make, so that when it prints out, it shows a detailed listing of all the payments made instead of maybe like the last 5 payments.
I have talked with Keith Durbin about that issue, and we're in the process of modifying our software to be able to do that for the 2013 tax statement. We're limited space, and we're going to be able to create some space to where we can print out every payment up to the last payment they made. So that will be modified for the 2013 tax statement.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Councilor Dow. Councilman Claiborne.
Charlie, on the bank, Tennessee Bank, as you look to expand perhaps other banks that would accept those payments, would you be looking at the larger banking chains that have branches all over the county, or would you consider some of the more local banks that have limited service areas in certain communities?
The reason we selected First Tennessee is because that is our lead bank. Our lockbox, our retail lockbox goes through First Tennessee. So what they were able to do is take those payments and batch those payments and run them through the lockbox. I know Williamson County uses any bank that wants to do business with them, but it's a manual operation, and we're trying to look at maybe some software that we can develop that would accommodate any bank that may want to participate without it being a manual operation. A manual operation gets pretty expensive when you're having to take your staff to manually process those payments.
Right.
But that was the reason we selected First Tennessee as a pilot program.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Claiborne. Seeing no other council members in the queue, I would just like to thank Mr. Caldwell for coming today to present, and we're completed with this department. Thank you. And Ms. Greer, thank you too for participating.
Thank you very much.
Hey, how's it going, sir?